Welcome to the Simply Mindful Wellness Podcast. Join your host, Tracy, as she takes a deeper look into nourishing your body, mind, and soul. Because being well creates the freedom to live life the way you want.
Hello and welcome to the Simply Mindful Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Richardson. I'm a therapist, wellness practitioner, educator, and author, and just help people to remove their blocks to healing, improve their wellness so they can feel their best. So welcome to the watchers and listeners. Today I'm joined by the fabulous Nicola Shaw from Nicola Shaw Online Coach, and we'll be talking about food, specifically eating well and the effects that this has, and it's just a little bit more than fat loss, I'll tell you that. So welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for asking me on. It's my first ever guest spot on a podcast, so that's that cherry popped. Yes, I'm excited today, and fire away, ask me whatever you like.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you for coming on.
I'm quite open. Yes, thanks for asking me.
Okay, so I'm so interested in this because everyone is always so het up about what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, what they should be eating, what they shouldn't be eating. Everybody wants to lose weight. It's coming up to Christmas, it's the New Year thing, it's the holiday thing, but as we know, there's no quick fixes. And to some out there, that may sound like a little bit of a revelation, but you've got quite an interesting journey into this sphere, from corporate life to dog grooming via the bodybuilding stage. So please, can you introduce yourself and share with the watchers and listeners who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Of course I can. Yes, when you say it like that, Tracy, I sound a bit like I flit around from thing to thing to thing all the time. But I have to say, it hasn't all just happened overnight. As you mentioned, I have got a background in corporate. I went down that route from uni and got into corporate HR, worked in that for decades, worked in major cities, London, Glasgow, all the rest of it. Even worked abroad for a while in HR, which was fabulous. But I always felt that whilst I enjoyed it and it was great income-wise, it was so bloody stressful, and it just wasn't my passion. My passion is health, fitness, nutrition. I can geek out on that kind of stuff, and I think everybody in this who's ended up doing this kind of thing, that's what they really love, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I always had that kind of there in the background, and I used, it was an interest and a hobby, and I would help people out and that sort of stuff. But I didn't ever think about doing it as a business, because my mindset in those days was, corporate's where the money is. I can't earn what I want to earn doing what I love. I have to do something else, which I now know is a pile of crap. But at the time, that's what I thought, and that's youth for you, isn't it? So I gradually over time kind of became a wee bit disenamored with it. And it got to the point where I was so stressed out, working so many hours. You give a pound of flesh, and when that becomes the norm, you're asked for a pound and a bit, and then a pound and a half. And I thought, why am I doing all of this? So that kind of sparked a little bit of a desire to get into doing something that was self-employed. But at the time, I couldn't see how I could jump from one to the other, because I didn't just want to work in HR and be self-employed. I wanted out. So I did a little bit of business development work for a local agency in Scotland called Business Gateway. They maybe had them in England as well, but Business Gateway. So I worked for them for a while. And my youngest sister, she was a prison officer in the same boat as me in terms of stressed out, etc., wanted to jump ship. So her passion is dogs. I know you've got a lovely dog as well, so that's why when I see your dog on Facebook, I'm like, oh, isn't she gorgeous? So Claire wanted to set up a dog grooming business, and I helped her do that. And it took off. And not only did it take off, but she was just working there on her own. I was going in to help her, and I actually quite liked it. So that was me bridging that gap between employed life and self-employment. So I jumped ship, trained up to be a dog groomer, and started to transform handsome hounds. Well, handsome hound, yeah, made them handsome. And that was brilliant. And I absolutely loved self-employment, but I still had that desire for my own passion to kind of make that reality. And so every cloud has a silver lining, I believe. And when COVID came along, and we'd been in the dog grooming salon for 2 or 3 years by that point, maybe a bit longer. Obviously, Boris made the announcement, we had to close the salon, and so that wasn't fine, but that was my only source of income. And it was just, stopped. So I thought, well, this is my chance. I'd been squirreling away in the background, thinking there might be a time in the future when I can become a coach. So I'd done the qualification and got everything that I needed all lined up. And very lucky, the stars all aligned. So I think whatever day it was, the salon closed, I had a little bit of a pity party for myself for a day, and then thought, do you know what, this is the time. This is the perfect time. I'm never, ever going to get, at that time we thought it was going to be, 4-6 weeks that we were off. Remember that? I thought, I'm never going to get 4 or 6 weeks where I don't have to go to work and I don't have to worry about, making sure all my clients are happy and what have you. Let's just start this online business. So that's exactly what I did. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I did on the coaching front, but not in terms of setting up an online coaching business. So I just offered a freebie fitness and nutrition service. I called it Lockdown Fitness and Nutrition. And I just set up a page on Facebook and just started to post useful stuff that could help people to get fit, lose fat, eat better, whatever it was. I just kind of went out there just to see whether or not I enjoyed doing that, whether or not what my message was kind of resonated with people, and whether I actually could coach, because at that point I'd only ever helped friends. So I didn't know if what I did would be of benefit to people. So I've taken a kind of unconventional route to becoming an online fitness and nutrition coach, but it's worked really well for me. And Lockdown Fitness and Nutrition, I really enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed helping people. In between all of that, I had my own separate journey for my own kind of, what would you call it, body transformation. And I put a lot of what I'd learned into practice. I have a real passion for lifting heavy shit. I love the gym. I took that to extremes and did some amateur competitive bodybuilding. And all of these little components that have happened and that I've done, they've all in their own way melted together perfectly to allow me to help people who want to lose fat, want to get fit, want to eat better, want to sleep better. All of those things that we know help make people feel better and look better, which, sounds on the surface a bit shallow, but it's so important to your mental health as well as your physical health. So it's all just kind of married together. And whilst I've never ever been, massively overweight or anything like that, it was a real eye-opener going from a bulk to ripped for stage to realise that I could get that lean by eating decent quality food in reasonable proportions and walking, and I didn't have to do any of the silly shit that you see out there. And I thought, if I can do that, to take it to extremes, then I can help anybody lose 2 stone, 3 stone or whatever and keep it off for life, because it is about lifestyle. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour around how I got from corporate to where I am now. But does that kind of help to put meat on the bones of what I'm about?
Oh, absolutely. And what a fabulous journey. It seems like there's lots of kind of serendipitous moments that come together at the right time, right place. The magic was there.
Yeah.
Kind of fell into place for you. So you just touched a little bit there on your journey into bodybuilding. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because for those that are watching at the moment, could you just tell us how old you are?
Yes, I'm 56.
Right, this woman does not look 56 in any way, shape.
Thank you. I'm a bit rough today because, we've had the cold and what have you, but I get that a lot, and I'll not deny I take it every time. I absolutely love hearing that, as we all would, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, like, you obviously like lifting things.
Yes.
How did you get into standing on a stage in your bikini and flexing your stuff?
Well, that was kind of again a little bit serendipitous, I suppose. But when I was working in corporate, obviously I've always loved health and fitness, but I prioritised work and family life ahead of my own kind of health and fitness. And I think that's something that resonates with a lot of busy women. You do put yourself last, don't you? So my kind of going to the gym or going to fitness classes, that all fell by the wayside when I had my son, and I didn't have him until I was 39. So I was a geriatric mum, went back to work and that was the terminology actually, Tracy, when I went to hospital, because I was a first-time mum at 39. So yeah, to get back on track, I was working too much, putting everybody else first, and I was starting to just feel a little bit like, you know what, this is not good, but I couldn't see a way out of it. So I was maybe eating the wrong things quite a lot of the time, just to kind of, think, well, I deserve it. I deserve those chips, or I deserve that glass of wine every night. Then it became two. And all of that compounded. And I got to the point where I'd been eyeing up a local boot camp who were advertising for new recruits. And I thought, will I won't I, will I won't I? And one night I just thought, you know what, I've had enough. I'm absolutely fed up feeling this rubbish. I need help. So I'm going to sign up. And if it's too tough, well, I've tried. So I signed up, and I'd never been to a boot camp like it before. It had a mix of cardio and weights, and it was really well done. It was, it got me out of my comfort zone, but I didn't feel so uncomfortable that I didn't want to keep going back. They included everyone. It was very much sort of not, you felt like you had to be perfect, but it was just do the best you can. And I loved that. So I started to thrive there, and surprisingly loved the weight side of it. I mean, I enjoyed the cardio side, but I really loved learning how to, do deadlifts and all this stuff. And it was an easy introduction to it because there were lots of newbies starting at the same time. And the person that ran the boot camp was really knowledgeable. So he helped us kind of bring that side on. And I loved it so much that I started to do it more and more, not more and more often, but just better and better. I really got into it. So I ditched boot camp and started to just train in the gym as well as do my walking. So anyway, how I got into bodybuilding was, at that time I was probably maybe 46, 47, 46, I think. And I could see my body changing, and it was becoming what I wanted my body to look like and feel like. I felt stronger. I felt leaner. I felt more like me than I ever had. And that kind of sparked a different mindset, which was, do you know what? I could do something really scary. Why don't I do set myself a big goal, and not a big goal in terms of lift X weights or whatever. I thought, do you know, wouldn't it be funny if I did something really out there and entered an amateur body? I thought I would just do it the once and that would be it. And to be honest, when I thought about it, I thought, I'm really just giving myself this goal so that I keep going. I'm not actually going to end up in a bikini on stage. Anyway, I went and got a coach, and we decided, I said, I want to do bodybuilding. Kind of looked at me as if to say, are you sure, love? Like, you're cracking on a bit. But no, he obviously was quite happy to take my money. He trained me, and a year later I did step on stage, and I bloody loved it. I mean, I didn't anticipate how much I would enjoy lifting, competing, the whole prep, it's the discipline, the challenge. I just loved the whole lifestyle. But to be honest, when I first decided to go down the route of amateur bodybuilding, I was a little bit embarrassed. And so much so that I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. At the time I was married and I told my husband and I asked my son, would you mind if mummy, did this? Because I thought, he's going to get the mickey taken out of him at school, isn't he? Your mum's on stage in a sparkly bikini. And he said, no, mum, if you want to do it, you do it. So when I got the okay from my husband and my son, I thought, I am going to do it. And gradually, with a few months in, I thought, I have to come clean with people because people were noticing that I was physically changing. And it seemed a little bit more like I could do it when I started to look the part. When I first signed up for it, I just looked like a regular person. So if I'd told my friends and family, by the way, I'm going to step on stage and be a bodybuilder, they would have kind of looked at me as if to say, have you lost your marbles? So that's my route into bodybuilding. And I competed for, I think it was about 4 years in total. And really just COVID put the kibosh on it and what have you. So, but I did absolutely love it. So for anybody out there who's thinking about doing anything scary, go for it. What have you got to lose? Age is just a number.
Oh, do you know what? 2 things. Obviously, like, age is just a number. I'm going to come back to that with you in a little while because I love that about you. And being in good shape, like physically good shape, mentally and stuff, we know that it influences our health and wellness overall.
Really.
Why do you think people find it so tough then?
I think people have kind of lost their way a little bit. I mean, I'm 56. So when I went to school, Tracy, back in the olden days, I went to an all-girls school. It was a convent. So part of it was very academic, but it was balanced with, we got home economics back then. I don't know if it's still a thing now. But we were taught how to cook basic things, basic skills. We could make, pies and healthy stuff, food from scratch. I think that's one of the things that's missing nowadays, that we're probably at a point where, parents of kids haven't actually got those skills necessarily because almost everyone works nowadays. So there's the time and the inclination to do it. But if it's not there from an early age, if your mum doesn't know how to cook, it's unlikely that you'll know how to cook. So there's that kind of ripple effect through generations. And the world has changed dramatically, hasn't it, since, crikey, it's like a history lesson now, but you think back to war times, not that we were alive then, people,
No.
you think back to those days, and I remember my parents and my grandparents talking about it, and, everybody could cook. Everybody was really good at making the most of what they had. There wasn't a lot of spare stuff going around. So you had to be clever and skillful to do all of that. Whereas if you fast forward to nowadays, there's so much convenience, and I'm doing the air quote thing, convenience food out there, but it's, in my view, it's not any more convenient than rustling up something from scratch if you know what you're doing. And so I think, to answer your question, I think people have been, in a way, a bit misled about the convenience side of things, because obviously that sells crap convenience food. And it's not all crap, by the way. I'm an avid fan of some of the stuff that's out there, just not all of it, as I'm sure you are, Tracy. Mm-hmm. But I think people have lost their way. And I think because of that, it seems to be, eating healthy, getting fit, all of this stuff, it seems to be overly complicated because they've lost the basic principles of what it's about. I've just signed up a cohort of new clients, and they're all lovely. I work with women over 40. They're all lovely, lovely ladies, but they're all in that demographic where they all work. They've all got busy family lives. They don't have time to come home and cook a meal, and their husband or their partner or whatever, they don't either because they're all so busy. So gone are the days of, you come home to a cooked meal, or you come home and you cook a meal from scratch. We're all so busy now. We just don't have the time to do that. And I think people have swung from that being the norm to now it's just like you get in and you just zap something or stick it in the oven or Deliveroo or Just Eats, and it's hard to find that middle ground if you don't really know what you're doing. So I think, to summarise, it's kind of lost skills, and also we're bombarded with information a lot of the time that's not the right sort of information to help us. We're being sold to all the time by this convenience kind of food, and your next meal's a phone call away, and it's sad, really, isn't it? Because people get sucked into that.
Absolutely. And like, I think we've all been there. You're tired. What do you do when you get home? You don't want to cook a meal from scratch.
I don't. And that's where, harken back to when I competed. I mean, when I was competing and I was prepping for a competition, so I'm not massive, but say I had to lose 2 stone of fat whilst keeping muscle. And that was kind of the norm. I had to do all of that. And calories were really important. I was on minimal calories to try and get, when I say minimal, like 1,400, 1,300 calories or something like that. That's not an awful lot of calories to do what I was doing. So calories were really important to me. They had to be really highly nutritious. I had to make sure that the volume of food I was eating was enough so that I wasn't starving all the time. Because not only was I training in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, but I was running a busy dog grooming business, and I had a kid to look after and a husband. And so it really did crystallise for me how important it is to learn a bit about, the value of what you're eating, how important your fruit and your veggies are, your whole grain, all of that stuff. Yeah, I had to be clever about it. I couldn't just go to the shop and buy any old rubbish when I didn't, feel like cooking. It had to be there. So I got clever about things and did a lot of my food prep and batch cooking at weekends, because I knew I was coming home from a busy day in the salon and I wasn't going to be cooking. My husband was busy. He wasn't going to be weighing and measuring all my stuff so that it fit my calories and macros. So needs must, and that's allowed me to transfer all those kind of tactics and strategies across to my online fitness business and nutrition business, and give the benefit of that kind of expertise and experience to my clients. So I'm not saying they have to do exactly this, and this, but what I do suggest is, well, okay, so you are busy. Could you spend an hour on a Sunday or a Saturday, doing a meal plan, writing up your food list, your shopping, going and getting it, so that maybe the next day you can rustle up 3 big pots of something that will see you through next week, and 3 some for the following week. And if you keep doing that on a weekly basis, then, Bob's your uncle, your freezer's always going to have stuff in it that you can just come home and zap. Far more nutritious, far more efficient, far less waste, far less expensive. It just ticks all the boxes. But I think people need a bit of a framework to work within to get to that point. I'm anal about stuff like this. I love it. I geek out on it. So I've done all of the donkey work for a lot of my clients because I've enjoyed that challenge while I was bodybuilding. But it's also worked really well for me because then I can move that over, as I said before, into the business and help people help themselves. And that's all it takes. Just a little bit of knowledge as to how to improve things a tiny bit. That's where you start, and then it just compounds over time.
Oh, I absolutely love that. It's not just about the calories, it's about the education component behind it and why you're doing stuff. And like you said, sometimes it is a little bit of a framework, because if you've never had that, how you just don't know. It's like anything, isn't it? If you've never been shown or taught or experienced it. So I love that. I'm just going to come back to one of the things that you said. I love your attitude that age is just a number. I find it really inspiring.
It is though, it's true.
Oh, absolutely. And I think oftentimes, like, due to like social pressures or norms, expectations, whatever it is, we tell ourselves we can't do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that you didn't start your bodybuilding journey till you're into your 40s, where most people are like, no, I'm too old for stuff like that. And then you're into your 50s and you're still going. It's absolutely awesome. So we've obviously got this huge capacity to make change. And specifically, like you working with women, do you notice anything, or have you observed anything with your clients, and anything that is not just about kind of the fat loss things, that changes within them over the time they're with you?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love about coaching, Tracy, because I attract people in because they want to lose fat. I mean, that's predominantly what the kind of target demographic that I suit, that I try and kind of work with. But I could almost guarantee every single client that I've worked with, at the end of the time with me, fat loss has been absolutely fantastic. There's no denying the fact that that's what they've wanted and that's what they've got. But that's not the only thing that they're going away with. They are starting to realise that it's not all about just eating less and moving more. And that's fat loss to the majority of people. That's all they think it's about, but it's not. It's about, as you mentioned before, it's about eating quality food. Not 100% of the time. 80% of the time is good enough. And the 20% that you've then got to play with, we live in the 21st century, wine's on tap, chocolates, in the cupboard. You can't get away from that, but it's about balance. And I think that people think they have to be so good all the time when they don't. They just have to be good enough. So that's a bit of an eye-opener, I think, for the majority of people that work with me, that I'm not a clean eating Nazi. I don't expect them to sort of, never take anything out of cling film ever again, or like zap anything in the microwave. So that's one of the things. The other is how lifestyle as a whole affects things in terms of, fat loss, health, all the rest of it. But, the clients that I work with quite often, it's not only that they're eating the wrong things, which mean they're eating more calories than they need to, and more kind of unhealthy stuff than they ideally should be, or, they want to. But it's about understanding simple things like, how drinking enough water makes such a massive difference. How sleeping enough and getting quality sleep, that makes a really big difference. How, the fact that you're burning the candle at both ends because, you've got kids that you need to kit out for school the next day, you've come home late, you've got washing to do, all that stuff. You think you're doing the right thing in terms of, getting all of that stuff done and squeezing how much sleep you can get away with to the absolute minimum, whilst just eating on the hoof all the time and making sure everybody else is okay. It's a real eye-opener to these women that actually you need to look at your whole lifestyle and make sure each of those boxes is being ticked well enough. And that actually is as big a factor in helping you to lose fat and become healthy as the eating and the moving side of it. So yes, long story short again, I think that people leave me with a newfound kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? A newfound kind of excitement about being the best version of themselves, and that is something that is so easily done by themselves with just some of the fundamentals that are important, like sleeping, eating good food, water, stress management. I don't do any fancy shit, Tracy. I just do the basics that work and make sure that we do them really well. And that's stuff that's easily accessible to absolutely everybody.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people market out there's like some magical pill or a unicorn or something like that you've got to search for, but it's getting the fundamentals and the foundations in place, and miracles happen.
They do.
So do you notice that this then, because we were talking about kind of transgenerational stuff, do you notice that then this filters down through the family, maybe to the kids and stuff like that, and you get comments like that from your people?
Yes, and that again is something that I love about my job. I'm consciously aware that, my role in my family was such that, pretty much, and this is maybe stereotypical, but I was pretty much chief cook and bottle washer in my family unit. So, I would either do the shopping, or if hubby was doing the shopping, it was from a list that I wrote. And I'm not saying that that's, what everyone's like, but the person that's, in charge of cooking and food and stuff like that, they're pivotal in that family unit, because they're the one that affects everyone. So if that person has a crap handle on what's good, nutritious food, then that is going to directly ripple through to that family, because they could be the person that's shopping, feeding, etc. So, that family is going to eat that. But then they're passing on those skills, like that is what they eat. So they're role modeling that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized that if, predominantly the women that come to me have that role, or they maybe share that role with another half, if I can sort of impart new skills, new knowledge, a new understanding of how to balance things in a much healthier way, that's going to then infiltrate that family unit in exactly the same way. So the good habits are going to filter through just like the bad habits did. And that really floats my boat big time, because that's just so, like I said, it's just so empowering thinking that me starting to bodybuild can affect however many women that I work with. So I just absolutely love that. And when I get feedback like, my kids have gone from, we've basically had hubby and I's meals, and then child number one wants this and child number one wants that. That was our old routine. Whereas now, with your help, we're all eating the same thing and we all love it. Or, we do lots of things like fakeaways and stuff like that. So it's kind of giving that family, not just the person that's working with me, but that family, a chance to kind of go back and get those old time values back, almost, of, family meals and stuff like that. So yes, I do. I absolutely do think that the person that's got the role in the family, that does the kind of the catering for that unit, if you can get to them and get them to improve, then it does ripple through, and I just love that.
Awesome. Okay, so we've heard about all the good stuff. What's the biggest misconception you find people, like before they've started working with you, you find that they come to you with?
One of the biggest is certainly this mentality that less calories is better, which is awful. And I see it all, I would say, with about 70% of the clients that I get in. When I do, and as you know, I do custom calories and nutrition targets for them. So it's not just a one size fits all. Whereas a lot of them have come to me and they've maybe been at, tried various diets, or they've signed up to MyFitnessPal, which I use as a food tracker, but they've signed up to MyFitnessPal themselves without any kind of context for it. They've put their data in and it comes up with a ubiquitous 1,200 calories, regardless of what age you are, what height you are, what size you are, whatever. And then they try and follow that. And it's hard, obviously. But they think that kind of mentality of, going on a diet, eating minimal calories, eating food that is diet food, it's so ingrained. And again, that's maybe partly generational, because a lot of the women that come to me, they can remember their mum always being on a diet. And so that's one thing that I think really needs to change. But it takes time. So when I work with clients like that, and you'll maybe see this as well in your practice, when you work with clients like that, it's almost like an ebb and flow of change. So they'll come on board and I'll tell them what I've just said. It's not about minimal calories. And I'll give them their calorie budget and their protein target, and they'll work with it. But then perhaps maybe when they step on the scales and they don't see a massive drop in a small period of time, that old narrative comes back into their mind, which is, Nicola's given me too many calories here. I need to start cutting. And I can start to see this. I have daily accountability in my group. I know what everybody's calories are, what everybody's protein is. So when I see what the screenshots are from MyFitnessPal, if they are massively down on their calories, then that's a red flag to me. I start to think, here we go. This old narrative's starting to creep in here. We just maybe prod a little bit and ask, are you feeling okay? Because obviously if you're unwell, you've not got the appetite. But more often than not, that is a theme. And that's what I mean by the kind of wave. So we'll address that. We'll just reiterate again that, less is not better. You need to actually fuel your body, which sounds so cheesy, but we know it's true. And then they'll go back up and eat a little bit more calories, get to their target, etc., etc. But it's a cycle. But what often happens, Tracy, is the period between them, coming across those little hurdles that appear, the time between that stretches and stretches and stretches and stretches, and gradually over time, you can address and change that kind of mindset. And I find that it works for me and my clients by just almost hand-holding to the point where they understand that actually it is okay. And they can start to then see, well, actually, that was just a blip. When the scales didn't move, it was for another reason. It could have been hormonal, or they were poorly and we didn't know it. Whatever it is, all the myriad of reasons why the scales maybe don't go down. And it's just about trusting the process. So they go back to the higher calories, and then the weight does, the fat does come off, and they can start to see, well, actually, this does work. I can lose weight on sensible calories and good nutritious food. I don't have to starve myself. So, but it's gently Bentley, isn't it? It's like baby steps. You're not going to go from 0 to hero overnight and undo habits that you've stuck with for years.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
change those in a week.
That's expectation versus reality.
Yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head there.
So, looking at kind of like how someone could set themselves up for success, what would be your top tips? So, like, even if it's not, as we've said, like weight loss is sometimes a side effect of everything else.
Absolutely.
What's your top tips for setting someone up for success?
I think it's just about being sensible and realizing that it is about lifestyle. And I know everyone is absolutely sick to the back teeth of hearing about that, especially when you really do just want somebody to come in with a magic wand and just fix shit for you.
Oh, amazing.
But, and my wand is in research and development, so we'll maybe get there eventually. But I think quick tips to success is, be sensible. Don't go and do silly low calories and quick fixes. Just actually look objectively as objectively as you can at your lifestyle and think, I think most people know where they're going wrong, but they kind of don't want to consciously recognize it. So, and examples of that are, do you eat takeout 4 times a week? Do you drink wine every night? Do you eat crisps when you drink wine every night? If you address those little bad habits that are compounding over time and taking you in the wrong direction, if you pulled that back a little bit, that would compound over time. Those better habits would compound over time. And don't try and go from, if we use drinking every night as an example, and who didn't when we were in COVID? My goodness, it was a kind of an obligatory task, wasn't it? But, can you change that from every night to every second night? Do that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then try it every third night, and then just, be sensible about it, wean yourself off. The other thing I would say, top tip, is routine. Again, not glamorous, not very sexy, but do you have routines for things? So you have set meals most of the time. Obviously at weekends, maybe a slightly different schedule than through the week. Do you eat more meals than you snack? That's a big one that's coming up for me and clients at the moment. Quite a lot of my new cohort, they have been thinking that grazing all day is somehow less calorific than having meals, when in actual fact, when we did a little bit of an experiment with it, it's way not. All the snacks that you have are really easy to eat and very quick to, they don't fuel you for very long. So you're having to have more of those more frequently. And actually, you could easily have twice the calories in snacks than you could at meals. And it's just about flicking that switch on as well. And my other top tips are definitely water. Try and get a litre in first thing in the morning, and then top up with the other litre and a half through the day. And walking is good enough. There's no need, especially for fat loss specifically, there's no need to be going nuts with cardio. Cardio's for fitness and it is vital. But for fat loss, don't try and burn the calories off. Try and manage what you're eating. And walking outside in daylight is brilliant for your mental health, your physical health, for sleep. It's just, it's an undervalued resource that costs absolutely hee-haw. And it's literally out your front door. And in the winter, mincing about the house is fine if you can't even get all your steps in through the day. So it doesn't have to be rocket science. You can just assess what you're doing, see where the easy wins are, and do something like that. And you'll get miles of benefit from just doing that. You don't have to go gung-ho.
I love that. Keeping it super simple.
Oh, totally.
So where can people find out a little bit more about you? Where are you hanging out online?
I mostly hang out on Facebook. I have my own personal profile, which is just me, Nicola Shaw. But I also have a business profile, which is Nicola Shaw Online Coach. I do also have an Instagram account, but being 56, I am not really up on all this newfangled social media stuff. So I'm on Instagram, but I'm learning the Instagram lingo and it's not going as well as Facebook. So I would say Facebook's probably where you will find me the most at the moment. That's my bag.
Fabulous. And we'll put the links to that in the show notes. So last question, it's one I like to drop on people and surprise people with. What does mindful wellness mean to you?
Mindful wellness to me is putting me at the centre. And what I mean by that, Tracy, is how do I feel my best? What makes me feel my best? So I don't want somebody to come in and impose wellness on me. I want to think about, what do I enjoy doing? So I enjoy lifting, but I wouldn't force all my clients to lift. I love walking. I do force them to walk because I think, that's something everybody can do. But, it's about, to me, that's my time. I love going out, getting my headphones in, walking about. It's me time. And it's about honestly assessing what works for me. So, I love food. I love eating. I don't want to be on a diet or eat a certain thing because I should. I want to do what suits me. So I suppose, in short, mindful wellness is about fitting your health and lifestyle around you and your preferences rather than having that imposed on you. Because one size doesn't fit all, does it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Oh, thank you so much for your time and for joining us today, Nicola.
Thank you.
And as I've said, we can find out more about you and the links will be in the show notes. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Simply Mindful Wellness podcast. Join us next time for a new episode.